screen sharing is now allowed. So you can start.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Hello. So, good afternoon po. We'll be presenting the descriptive statistics using Titanic dataset. So, ginawa po namin at first is we cleaned the data. We deleted po those who didn't have age sa dataset. Then,
You
for
remove
the-
them?
yes po.
Okay, see. Alright.
To clean up the data po. Then, so yung variables po na ginamit namin are age, sex, passenger class, survival, and embarkment place. So, for characterizing age and sex, we use population pyramid po. So, as you can see po na we use percentage na lang po kasi hindi masyado pong marami if masyado rin pong hindi maganda yung graph if hindi po namin siya ginamit as percentage. So, as you can see po na there are more male passengers than female po. Then, majority po ng passengers are aged between 20 and 30 po. Then, yung pinaka-onti po is from 70 to 80. Then, for the next po is we use box and whiskers po to check the mean age, the average age po for female and male. And for female po, we got 28.6 and for the male po is 30.5. Note po na since we remove po those who do not have age, yung mean ay yung total number of passengers na lang po is 1,046. Then, yung median age din po for the Titanic passengers po is hindi po nagkakalayo, which is for female is 27 and for male 28.
Next would be po is answering the question, where do most passengers embark from? And this is the horizontal bar graph po that we use. The total number of passengers per place of embarkment. And as you can see in the graph, most passengers embark from Southampton with 782 passengers. Queenstown has the least number of passengers who embark with 50 passengers. Upon this graph naman po is next slide. It's the pie chart wherein we can see the rate of survival per embarkment place, answering the question which embarkment place has the largest rate of survival. The answer would be Queenstown has the largest rate of survival, followed by Southampton, then Sherborne. Indicating the survived passengers as the orange color and the passengers who did not survive or died have the color of yellow. That's all. Thanks. Ian.
The next graph answers the question, which sex has the most number per passenger class? And as you can see in the bar graph, most passengers are men in all classes. In addition, class 3 is the most populated and has the greatest number of men. As the orange in the graph signifies the males and the yellow signifies females. And the next graph answers the question, are there relatively more class 3 in each embarkment? Based on the graph, most passengers who embark from Southampton and Queenstown went to class 3, while 60% of the passengers from Sherborne went to class 1. We used a pie chart to represent each embarkment place and the percentage of passengers per class. That's all. Thank you.
So, thank you, Group 1. So, yun lang naman exactly. Auto-perfect na yan. Ayan, chill lang tayo ngayon. Descriptive lang naman yan. That's exactly what we're looking for. Alright? But, yeah, I just have to comment na the reason why we're doing that, the next part of our lessons kasi will be inferential statistics. From those graphs, you're gonna be asking the questions na why, di ba? So for example, the place of embarkment place, apparently, class 3 passengers, for Queenstown and Southampton, yung most ng passengers, but most of class 1 passengers did embark at Cherbourg. So what's there? So some things na ganun, that will make you wonder. Yun yung mga itatanong natin. Shumi, may sagot ka dun?
Meron po, sir. Mas mayaman po siguro yung mga taga Sherbrooke.
Okay, pwede rin sana tingnan natin yung we could look at their fare or their passenger class, right? Maybe. So
Yes,
yan.
sir.
It will lead to more questions. You can answer them using descriptive as well. Maybe the other groups can present them, did answer them. But yun, that's basically EDA, Stat 201. You explore the data in order to create hypothesis from it. Next will be Craig, Cheska, and Miss Park. How can I call? What do you want? How do you want me to call you?
Just Yuna, sir.
Yuna. Okay. Craig, Yuna, and Cheska. For the next.
Hello, sir. I'll share my screen po.
Sige. It's already allowed, so go.
Okay po. Okay. Nakikita po ba yung screen ko?
Kita na.
Okay, thank you, sir. Good afternoon, guys. We are Group 3 and we're here to discuss our presentation on descriptive statistics using yung dataset ng Titanic. So, initially, yung dataset kasi nagko-contain ng 1,309 passengers. Pero since yung ibang passengers hindi nag-indicate ng kanilang age or yung place ng embarkment, ang ginawa namin is tinanggal na lang namin yung passengers na yun. So in total, yung mga passengers na hindi nag-indicate ng kanilang demographics is around 263 passengers. So ang natira na lang namin sa total is 1,044 passengers. Tapos yun na lang ginamit namin na total for the succeeding statistical techniques. So for the next slide.
So here is a histogram which showing the frequency distribution of Titanic passenger. The numbers are divided by age, and among them, there are 82 passengers ages 10 and below. For age 10 to 20, there are 143 passengers. Passengers who are 20 to 30 are 344, while the population of passengers in the age of 30 to 40 is 231. There are 135 passengers ages 40 to 50 and 70 passengers for 50 to 60 years old. 31 passengers belong to ages 60 to 70, and for 70 years and up, there are 8 passengers. The total number of passengers is 1,044. Moving forward, this is pie chart, which covers the distribution of the population by gender. With a total population of 1,044, 63% are male and 37% are female. There are 658 male passengers and 386 female passengers. The question is, what the average of fare price per place, that is passenger embark. Here is a box and whisker plot slide. Whisker plot and present the average fare for passengers corresponding with the place where the boat would embark. The average fare of each person traveling to Southampton cost $28.24. On the other hand, the fare costs $16.02 for the trip to Queenstown. The individual fare for passengers who are headed to Cherbourg is $72.46. The question is which gender more survived? The last part of the slide displays the number of survivor, and it is also divided by gender. The number 0 represent deceased and 1 for passengers who survived. There are 96 female and 524 male passengers who died during the tragedy with a total number of 620 passengers, whereas 290 females and 134 males are the survivor with a total number of 424. This shows that there are relatively more females survived than male.
Yun lang po.
Wait lang.
Last slide po.
Last slide. Alright. Last slide na.
Opo.
Sige, sige. So thank you, group 3. So wait lang, huwag ka muna mag-stop share. Can you go back to a few slides? Okay. Yan. So nasagot na yung naisip ni Shumi kanina. It's actually correct. Those who boarded at Cherbourg, mayaman nga sila. They're rich, or they're class 1 passengers. They paid the highest amount of fare, but it varies a lot, right? As we can see from the box plot, they exhibit the highest variance, the highest variability. As we can see, malaki yung we have a big box, the whiskers extend longer. So yeah. And then for the next one, can you move to the next slide? See, have you watched Titanic, the movie, 1997?
I don't know about 1997, but yung si Leonardo.
Yun, 1997 yun. Pinanganak na ako nun. Oh my God. Ayun. So, yeah, have you watched it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yung next slide pala, sorry. Yung di ba, ayun, wait lang. Yung last slide. And so what they did, I don't know if it's accurate, but what they did was women and children first, right? Save the women and children first. And then assure Javi. Just go. Okay, that's fine. And tawag doon, women and children first. So apparently it reflects on the data. It reflects, you can see it on the data na a majority of the casualties are males. So whereas more females have survived as compared to males. So most likely that's one of the causes. But since we're using descriptive lang, it's only most likely. So it's not necessarily caused by that. It's one of the possible causes, something like that. Okay, so thank you, group 3. Okay, next. Sige, gradean ko na rin ko. Auto-perfect din yan. Ayan, so as I mentioned, this is a simple activity. You're given rubrics, right? So as long as the charts aren't messy, one of our goals kasi when using descriptive statistics, using graphs, it's not overwhelming, right? You would want to incorporate as many variables as possible, but it doesn't have to look confusing. So far what you did was very clean, very summarized. So yeah, thank you, group 3. Next will be group 2, Ara, BJ, and Casey.
Hello, naririnig po ba ako?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, hi guys. Wait, can you guys see the presentation?
Ako, yes.
Okay. So hi guys, we're just going to present our graphs. I'm with Casey and Ara for our group presentation for about the Titanic. Next slide, please. Okay. And here we just made a simple pie graph showing the female to male ratio, and beside it is the pivot table that we use. So we can see that there are over 60%, 60% are over 60% are male compared to female, which are only 35%. And next slide, please. Next, we're going to show, we show the frequency of age in a bar graph distribution, showing that there are more passengers ranging between the age of 21 to 30 years old. And as you can see here in the count on the interval count of age in the right side. And we also included the no data in our tables, but we didn't include it in the grand total just to be precise. And we also showed its mean, median, and mode, which we could see that the mean age would be around 29 years old or 30 years old. Next slide, please. Next, we showed a frequency between the age and the sex of males and females, and you can see it's still the same, from relatively similar to the graph before, that there is a higher distribution among between the interval of 21 to 30. However, there are almost more than more, how would I say this, more than half, almost more than half of females as to our males. And unfortunately, we can see that there are over 200 demographs that didn't show any data, so we can prove for sure how accurate this is. Next slide, please. Now, we're gonna ask some questions. That is there a relationship between the amount of passengers survived based on their sex? You can see here that there's a big difference to the amount of survived from females to males. Only 127 females did not survive compared to their total population of 466, compared to the male over 650 males dead and only 161 survived. We can see from this graph that more than 75% of males, almost 75% of males did not survive the Titanic incident. Next slide, please. In here, we'll be showing the frequency of people that survived by passenger class. Is there a difference in the number of survivors based on the passenger class? As we can see, there are more people who did not survive on the passenger class 3. In a short research, guys, just a bit of trivia. If we look at the skeleton of the Titanic ship, as the lower you go in the ship is where the third passenger class, or you could say the economy class of the passenger, and the higher you are in the ship, that would be your that would be for the higher class, like passenger class 1 and passenger class 2. That's why there are more people who did not survive in passenger class 3, because during the time of the sinking, most of them were in the bottom or in the middle part of the boat. So due to how fast it sunk, which was only 5 minutes, yeah, over half of the third passenger class did not survive. Okay, next, please. Next, we're going to show the frequency of people that survived by the place they embarked. Is there a difference in the number of survivors based on the place they embarked? We could see here that there are, first, we could see that there are more people who embarked from Southampton. We saw in the previous presentation that it was a bit cheaper in Southampton. And another reason that we could say that there are more people who embarked here, because this was the last stop that the Titanic had to go before it would depart from the Atlantic Sea to New York. if we look at the if we Google the route of Titanic, everything started at Southampton. Sorry, everything started at It started at Southampton, then stopped by at Cherbourg, then finally at Queenstown, where it did its last stop, then before journeying to New York, where it unfortunately sank. And we can see here that since there are more people who embarked on Southampton, there would be more casualties in that particular area. So that is all for our presentation today, and thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you. So wait lang, pabalik sa previous slide. Alright, so wait lang na. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
And so one thing about this is it's actually good you provided the percentages, because of course if you look at the counts lang, it's always gonna be influenced by the number of those who boarded at Southampton, Cherbourg, Queenstown, right? So when you're comparing survival rates, let's say this is there a difference in the number of survivors? Of course there will be a difference, especially if the number of passengers already differ. Right, so it's actually more accurate, and it's actually good that you provided the percentages, ha? So yun lang naman for this one. So thank you. Next group.
Thank you, sir.
Next will be Alain, JC, Javi, Madi. Group 5.
I'll share screen, sir.
Okay.
Sir, coincidence lang po na same template ang ginamit namin. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. We will be presenting our activity for the descriptive statistics of Titanic. So starting with sex, there is 64% male and 36% female, meaning that there were more male passengers in general than female. Then for age, when we cleaned up the data, we rounded it down. So that's why there's no more decimal points. And then to show the frequency of age, we use a bar graph and included as well the people who have unknown ages. So the highest age interval is the people from 21 to 30 years old. And then for the mode, the most frequent age is 24 years old. But if we include the people who have the highest, if we include the people who have unknown ages, the mode would be the unknown age. Then the average age of the passengers is 30 years old, and the standard deviation is 14.43.
So there, as you can see in the graph, the percentage of passengers per class na marami, there, sorry, there are many, class 3 was the class where the passengers is yung pinakamarami. Then next is class 1, then class 2. So we can see that most of the passengers in the Titanic were class 3. Then next. Then as you can see in the pie graph, most of the passengers of the Titanic did not survive, and containing 809 lives were taken on that moment. Next.
For the place embark, the percentage of place embark is for Cherbourg is 20.63%, Queenstown is 9.40%, and Southampton is 69.82%, and the unknown are 0.15%. So based from this data is we can see that there are more passengers that place on Southampton. And for the frequency, it was shown that there are also more passengers on place embark on the Southampton.
Okay, so here's the age and sex distribution of the passengers based on survivability. So to show this, we used a box and whisker plot. So so over here we have the one for did not survive. For the females, the average, the range of the age for females who did not survive is a lot smaller compared to the range of the age of males who did not survive. And they are both slightly skewed to the right, but very slightly. It's not very noticeable. Then for the survived, the range of the age of the females are a bit larger than the range of the age of the males, but the male has an outlier, like two outliers, especially the outlier with 80, which kind of pulls everything up. And the distribution for females that survived is slightly skewed to the right, very slightly, while the distribution for males that survive is not skewed at all.
These are the graph of estimated fares is skewed to the right, in other words, positively skewed, and a huge majority of the passengers paid an estimated fare of up to 128 US dollars, according to the graph on the left. And also the positive skew or skew to the right makes sense because of a positive skewness, and also the mode is smaller than the median, which is in turn smaller than the mean, which suggests a positive skew.
So which class had the highest survival rate per class? No? For class 1, we have 61.92% of survival rate. So 200 people survived out of 323 passengers. Then for class 2, we have 36.84%. And for class 3, we have 25.53%. So with this, we can say that class 1 had the highest survival rate. So it's like they were given priority and well, in the boats dun sa movie or something. Then and we have class 3 as the lowest survival rate.
For the second question, did the passengers place embark have any impact on their survival? So this figure showed that the survival rate of place embark, and here is the percentage of those who survive and who did not survive. And we can see that on the Southampton, there are more percentage of those who survive and did not survive among those other embark places.
That's all, sir.
Okay. Alright. So thank you, group 5 ata kayo. So just wait lang. So on this slide, hindi pa
Oh,
share
sorry.
ulit.
Sorry, sir. Wait.
Comments lang tayo. Okay, so on this slide, okay, maybe I think dito is you want to compare survival rates, right? So maybe it's helpful if tawag doon, you look at survival rates for Southampton. So what I'm saying is, for example, yung percentages, not these percentages, but rather they should sum up to 100, those percentages. Kasi I think this is 14.8 plus 9.8 plus 75.4 plus 0.
Yes, sir, because it's showing the survival rate for survived and the rate for people who did not survive.
So Yeah, but yun nga, comment lang yun when you want to compare. Basically, the answer to your question is we want to compare survival rates. So what's the survival rate for Sherborne, Queenstown, and Southampton? It might be better if you highlight it, but this is fine, of course. And as we can see, ayan, there's something about this naman. For those who boarded Southampton, uh, they're much more than those who did not survive, diba? There's much more who did not survive as compared to those who survived. So back previous slides.
Wait, sorry sir, naghahang.
Ay sige, sorry.
Ade.
Ano pa nga ba? Ayos na yun. Ayan yun na. Tapos na. Okay na, clear na.
Okay.
Marami pa rin groups. So thank you.
sir.
Okay. So next, ilan pa? Last two groups, Ace, Andre, and Luke. Next yan. Hello? Ayun, okay.
There's my screen show.
Sige, sige. Yan na. Kita na siya. You can see it. Uy. Ginawa niya.
Okay, sir, can you start now?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a table of the summary measures, and I also made graphs for the distribution, age and sex distribution. So you can see that the ages 20 to 25 are most frequent, while ages 70 to up to 80 are like the least frequent. Also, we know that there's more males than females, almost twice as much. Also, in the summary measures, I put in the central tendency, measures variability, coefficient skewness, but I also added others, which is kurtosis, minimum, maximum, and the count. The percentile table doesn't include everything in percentile because there'll be like 100 of them. So I just picked, well-placed ones. So P10, P25, P50, P75, P90, and P99. So you can see the distribution of the percentiles there. Next. I also added the distribution tables for the other variables that's not sex and age, so it's just easy to tell. So for fair distribution, the most likely amount is somewhere between 0 and 50. 1 and 50. And the most embarked place is Southampton. The least embarked place is Queenstown. And you can surmise a bunch of other data from the other distributions. Next.
So our first question is, which age group has the highest number of survivors? So from the total, we took only the number of survivors, and we also removed those who didn't indicate their age. So from the total of 427, we divided these people into 5 age groups. And as illustrated in the bar graph, those aged 20 to 39 survived, had the highest number of survivors. Next.
Moving on to the next question. We wanted to find out what passenger classes were most frequent based on the place of departure. So there was Cherbourg, Southampton, and Queenstown. So Queenstown had the least amount of passengers compared to Cherbourg and Southampton. However, there was a very big percentage of those in Queenstowns that went to the passenger class 3. And from Southampton, Southampton was the majority, where most of the passengers of the Titanic were from Southampton, embarked from Southampton. And there was also a big majority of the passengers there being passenger class 3. However, in Cherbourg, there was a notable majority of there being a passenger class 1. So just like the previous statements, we could assume that Cherbourg is a well-off place. And that would be all, sir. Thank you.
Okay, sige. So wait lang. Can you go back to the first slide? Thank you for this group. First slide. Ayan. Yun lang. Just one comment. Please don't use summary measures for qualitative, yung sex right there. What did you do? Parang 0 males, 1 female, something like that.
Yes, sir.
Ayun, so ano lang natin, please don't take it the wrong way, but please please don't do that. Doesn't tell us anything actually. Those variances, they don't tell us anything because yung mga coefficient of variation, skewness, because they're inherently qualitative, right? You can't really put summary measures with them. You can't really perform computations. But just one comment, just for sharing sa class, mga psychologists, they make use of yung Likert scale, right? Likert scale is 1, strongly disagree, 2, disagree, 3, neutral, 4, and so on, something like that. So Likert scale questions. At some point, those are inherently qualitative, right? But at some point, if you have so many questions, you take the sum, they can be taken as numbers. So that's the practice nila sa psych, and it's valid. But for this, it's just zeros or ones. Medyo hindi siya appropriate na gawa ng summary measures. At some point, qualitative, pwede mo na ituring na quanti. Hindi ganun na may line siya na pwede mo nang you can consider them as quanti, like those Likert scale questions. So alright, so can we move to the next slide? Next ulit. Next ulit. Yun, question lang. How did you create those tables? Is that using pivot table?
Yes, sir. It was using the pivot table function from Excel.
Mas marunong na kayo mag-pivot table sa akin. I don't know how to do two-way tables using pivot tables. It's good. It's commendable that you're exploring the methods on your own. So,
Thank you, sir.
Ayun. So, thank you sa group. Next na tayo. So, the last one will be Anne, Crystal, Polo, and Earl.
Sir, wait lang po.
Sige lang. Nga pala kayo yung recorded, no?
Good day, everyone. We are Group 4, and today we will be discussing or characterizing the passengers from the Titanic using descriptive statistics.
For the overview of the data collected, we have chosen 4 variables to summarize, namely age, sex, passenger class, and the number of survivors. For the age, we would be answering the question, what is the age group distribution of the Titanic passengers? For the sex, we would be answering the question, what is the percentage of female and male passengers? We classified the number of survivors per class to answer the question, which class is the dominant one, and which class has the most number of survivors. Lastly, we also classified the number of survivors based by their age and sex to answer the question, which age group has the most number of survivors.
In the data that will be used in this report, there is a total of 1,309 passengers recorded, and from this we will be getting information such as age, sex, class number, number of survivors, and other information which will be used to answer the questions stated in the previous slide.
Out of all the Titanic passengers, the pie graph shows that 64.4% are male, while 35.6% are female, which tells us that there were more male than female passengers.
So for the distribution of ages, we can see on the left, the bar graph shows that most passengers are 20 to 30 years old. And on the other hand, the least would be those who are 70 to 80 years old. If you look at the box plot on the right, the ages are presented by sex. And we can observe that there is actually no major difference in the mean and median, lower and upper quartile of the frequencies of the age in each sex. But we can observe that there are more outliers in the male group compared to the female group.
The age groups consist of 0 to 12 years old, 13 to 18 years old, 19 to 59 years old, and 60 to 100 years old are classified as child, adolescent, adult, and senior adult, respectively. The unknown age group is for passengers with no registered age. Based on the given graph, the group of adults has the most number of survivors, followed by the unknown group. In addition, for all the age groups, female passengers had the most number of survivors compared to male passengers.
Next, we can see from the graph that the most dominant class is the lowest class or the third class. Now, if we categorize the number of survivors by class, we can see that Class 1 has more than half of its group survive and thus has the most number of survivors. Yet, on the other hand, Class 3, with around 700 in the group, only has around 150 to 200 survivors and has the most number of passengers who did not survive.
Thank you for listening.
Alright, thank you sa last group. Nag-mute ako, natatawa ako dun sa music niyo eh. Okay, so thank you. Just some questions. Did you use Excel for this one? For the graphs? Google Sheets or what? Excel yun?
Google Sheets po.
Alright. Kaya pala sobrang ganda. Okay. Kasi the color theme is same with the presentation. So next question is how did you do the age groups? Yung adult, how did you slice them into intervals? Diba may adult, senior adult, how did you come up with those groups?
We based them po sa isang study na kung saan kinategorize yung mga ages.
So yun.
Like
ano? So yeah, that's good. So may basis naman pala kayo for doing that. So as I mentioned, dividing into intervals is really you can customize it, of course. Ayun pala, one comment also with that last presentation. One thing about presenting data, if we're nitpicking din lang talaga, there's an element of design. This one I can't really teach you because I suck at designing. Okay? So but yeah, nagandahan ako dun sa last talaga. So it should be simple enough that it's not confusing to look at, but it's still it looks nice. Gusto ko lang sana i-avoid din yung wala namang gumawa sa inyo, no one did, but I have to tell this story. Once I was teaching first year of teaching at LaSalle, I taught graphs and charts in Excel. Parang nasobrahan sila sa hayok sa Excel. Lahat ng all features, they selected all features. They customized the graphs so much. Parang first bar dun sa bar chart is rainbow. Next, pictures of them, yung fill color. The next is pictures ng butterflies. So it's good that they know how to customize pero nasobrahan. Ayun, so don't do that. No one did it in this class naman. But yun, that's really good. The last one as well. Ganda tingnan, simpleng-simple, easy to interpret. So yun,